I think that I have no choice but to engage in this immigration conversation. A lot of the people who follow several pages that I've had have really asked me to dive into it. In fact, I've been as much as challenged in several ways about the whole immigration thing as to, why I haven't said a lot about it. So you wanted it. I told you that the history was ugly. I gave so many disclaimers. Nobody cares. So you want the history, you want the truth, I'm going to give you the truth, right? And so before we do all of that, though, let me first share my page. It's a new page, but it is a way that you can get some of these videos if you want to, because somebody asked about where to find them. So this is a way where you could automatically find definitely this video I'm about to do. So let me put that up for you guys. All right, so you can go there and you can find definitely this video that's I'm about to do now. And you can, and a couple of the previous videos I've done in regards to some stuff that's going on in DC. This is going to be more of a federal, but this is for everybody. So a lot of the stuff I talk to most of the time is for everybody, but some of the stuff is for DC too. So you can go there and find anything you need to find. I will also share my YouTube page as well on one of the links. Now, with this immigration conversation, this whole immigration thing starts on June 11th, 1963, when John F. Kennedy announces a new bill that he wants to implement here in the United States. I'm going to let him speak for himself and tell you guys what he is looking to do. Okay, so without further ado, it's Mr. Kennedy.
Now an address by the President of the United States, speaking live from Washington.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This afternoon, following a series of threats and defiant statements, the presence of Alabama National Guardsmen was required on the University of Alabama to carry out the final and unequivocal order of the United States District Court of the Northern District of Alabama. That order called for the admission of two clearly qualified young Alabama residents who happened to have been born Negro. That they were admitted peacefully on the campus is due in good measure to the conduct of the students of the University of Alabama, who met their responsibilities in a constructive way. I hope that every American, regardless of where he lives, will stop and examine his conscience about this and other related incidents. This nation was founded by men of many nations and backgrounds. It was founded on the principle that all men are created equal, and that the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. Today we are committed to a worldwide struggle to promote and protect the rights of all who wish to be free. And when Americans are sent to Vietnam or West Berlin, we do not ask for whites only. It ought to be possible, therefore, for American students of any color to attend any public institution they select without having to be backed up by troops. It ought to be possible for American consumers of any color to receive equal service in places of public accommodation, such as hotels and restaurants and theaters and retail stores, without being forced to resort to demonstrations in the street. And it ought to be possible for American citizens of any color to register and to vote in a free election without interference or fear of reprisal. It ought to be possible, in short, for every American to enjoy the privileges of being American without regard to his race or his color. In short, every American ought to have the right to be treated as he would wish to be treated. But this is not the case. The Negro baby born in America today, regardless of the section of the state in which he is born, has about 1/2 as much chance of completing a high school as a white baby, born in the same place on the same day. 1/3 as much chance of completing college. 1/3 as much chance of becoming a professional man. Twice as much chance of becoming unemployed. About 1/7 as much chance of earning $10,000 a year. A life expectancy which is 7 years shorter, and the prospects of earning only half as much. This is not a sectional issue. Difficulties over segregation and discrimination exist in every city, in every state of the Union, producing in many cities a rising tide of discontent that threatens the public safety. Nor is this a partisan issue. In a time of domestic crisis, not be fully free until all its citizens are free. We preach freedom around the world, and we mean it. And we cherish our freedom here at home. But are we to say to the world, and much more importantly, to each other, that this is a land of the free, except for the Negroes? That we have no second-class citizens, except Negroes? That we have no class or caste system, no ghettos, no master race, except with respect to Negroes? Now,
Okay, so I wanted to stop there because that right now is the very relevant piece to what he was saying and for what he wanted to introduce. John F. Kennedy, in his own words, is introducing an act to bring systematic equality to Negroes. Those are his words. That's his own words. Bring systematic.
the time has come for this nation to
Negroes. There you go. He said it himself. This is not me putting words in his mouth.
We preach freedom around the world.
There you go.
And we mean it.
Yeah.
And we cherish our freedom here at home. But are we to say to the world, and much more importantly, to each other, that this is a land of the free, except for the Negroes? That we have no second-class citizens, except Negroes? That we have no class or caste system, no ghettos, no master race, except with respect to Negroes?
Okay, so this is why this is important, right? The reason that he's bringing equality specifically to Negroes, Black people, Native Black people, is because at the time, there weren't any immigrants. Not many. It were some, but most of them were white, and they didn't have systematic racism problems. They didn't have a problem. They were brought here literally to work. So they didn't have problems finding jobs and, with housing. They was given housing, free housing. So the systematic things that Native Blacks were dealing with, immigrants did not deal with. There weren't too many immigrants from other countries at the time. There were some, but it wasn't really a lot at all. It was a very small population of immigrants of color outside of Black people. So when this act was written, it was written specifically, as Kennedy said, for Negroes, Native Blacks. That's who the act was written for. And then in fact, talk about it specifically, who was the one pushing for this act. Because after Kennedy speaks, you have a news conference which basically explains exactly who was pushing for this.
This is Roger Mudd in New York, continuing our special coverage of today's historic events in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and in Washington, D.C. You have just heard the President of the United States make an address that has been urged upon him over the past month by the Negro leadership in America and by the liberal leadership in America. The president described the rising Negro militancy constituting a moral crisis in the United States. He said this rising tide of discontent threatens the public safety of the United States. He said,
so you heard what he said. Let's go back right here.
In Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and in Washington, D.C. You have just heard the President of the United States make an address that has been urged upon him over the past month by the Negro leadership in America.
By the Negro leadership in America. So that is the ones who were fighting for this. Okay, let's get that correct. It wasn't nobody else. Nobody else were fighting for these people and their freedom. It was the Negro leadership in America. And it were people who were allies in that. Let's not get it twisted, but the Negro leadership in America is the ones who bear the brunt. Let's be clear about it, who the ones who pushed this, right? Okay. So this was, the date of this was June 11, 1963. Okay. And this is the first civil rights address that we had in the United States at the time. Well, the second one, it was some civil rights address by Eisenhower, but this is the modern day civil rights address that we had. Okay. So what we'll do is shortly after this, as the newscaster said, it was pushed by the Negro leadership. So this was in June, on June 11th. That summer, we're going to fast forward to August 25th, 1963. We're going to listen to Martin Luther King talk about the March on Washington, which actually happened shortly after that Kennedy address. That Kennedy address was June 11th, 1963. The March on Washington happened August 28th, 1963. And this is, I'm going to play a Martin Luther King interview that he did right before the March on Washington. So he could specifically state exactly what his fight was about. Okay. I thought it was on my screen. It wasn't.
Many whites, both North and South, have the feeling that we are pushing things too fast and that we should cool off a while, slow up for a period. I cannot agree with this at all, for I think there can be no gainsaying of the fact that the Negro has been extremely patient. We have waited for well now 345 years for our basic constitutional and God-given rights. And we still confront the fact that we are at the bottom of the economic ladder. We confront the fact that the gap between the medium income of Negroes and whites is widening every day. We confront the fact that the Negro...
Okay, so going back to what I just said with Dr. King, so I had to make sure I played it. The civil rights wasn't about, it wasn't about drinking at the same water fountain, as you could hear him say. He hasn't even really he mentioned segregation somewhat, but it was more about economic, the fact that we are at the bottom of the economic ladder. Right. And so these things are being orchestrated. And I'm going to show you how these things were orchestrated even afterwards, even after this. So that is what we're dealt with. This is what these people are fighting for. This is what Dr. King is fighting for. Okay, let's get that correct. Let's make sure we understand those portions. And it was for the Negro. Okay, it wasn't for anyone else. All right, so all right, so, and just to drive home this point a little bit further, I want to show y'all something that struck me as very interesting in this. See exactly what this picture says. Right here. March on Washington, national headquarters. This is the headquarters. March on Washington for jobs and freedom. That's the national headquarters. Wednesday, August 28th. Okay. So it's no as to what they were fighting for. It was jobs. Okay, because jobs were being withheld. All right. And that was obviously a practice of the United States government at the time. Okay. So everybody was supporting, all these people were here to support the systematic equality of blacks. All these people came out here that day to support. Look at that. All right, that's Washington, D.C. This is national, just the monument. Washington Monument. You know, you got that whole thing filled up. People don't understand it's a lot of space right there. So all these people came out, marched, white, black, old people, young people, busloads of people, excuse me, came out to support economic equality for Negroes. Okay? For Negroes. That's what this whole thing was about. You heard King said, you heard Kennedy said. And this is all the support that was ramped up behind that. All right, gonna move like right along. This where things get tricky. So that was August 28th, 1963. So we're gonna fast forward to November 22nd, 1963. So that was August 28th, November 2nd, virtually about, let's see, August, September, October, November. So that's about 3 months later. And the Kennedy speech, of course, was 2 months prior to the March on Washington. This is where some of the uglier parts, to me, of this story happens, okay? So November 22nd, I'm going to play what happened. November 22nd, 1963, of course, it's 3 months after the March on Washington. This period in time is just a really weird period in time for American politics. I don't know who was driving the ship. That's not what I'm here to speculate. I'm just here to say what happened, okay? And say, when you look at some of this, just whatever, you make your own conclusions. But I'll play what happened on November 22nd, 1963. Okay, now
happened this morning just an hour ago. It has been 1 hour since that electrifying flash came over the wires that bullet shots had been heard to ring out in the Kennedy motorcade. President Kennedy arrived at Dallas Airport from Fort Worth, Texas. It was the third stop on his swing of Texas that began yesterday, a swing that up to then had been wildly greeted by thousands of Texans. He had been given a warm Texas welcome. He arrived at the airport and with Mrs. Kennedy and Governor John Connally of Texas, climbed into an open limousine to drive through streets crowded with cheering Texans. About 2/3 of the way to the downtown hotel where he was scheduled to make a speech. As his car approached a railroad underpass, 3 shots were heard to ring out. Mrs. Kennedy was heard by reporters nearby to scream, "Oh no!" The president, blood gushing from a wound in the head, slumped into her lap. Governor Connally slumped onto the floor of the limousine. It was later determined that he had wounds in the chest. We also have just heard that perhaps Vice President Johnson was wounded in the arm in this incident. He was seen entering the hospital, at least, holding his arm, and has not been seen in the corridors of the hospital with the waiting White House aides since. At any rate, after that shooting incident, of course, pandemonium broke out. The Secret Service men, well trained in their job, immediately began fanning out into the crowd looking for the assassin. A report has it that
none of that is relevant after that, right? So as we all know, Kennedy did not survive that attack. He passed away that day. And Lyndon B. Johnson is who took over for Kennedy, 1963. Okay. For Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963. Okay. Now, this is kind of hate to say is where it gets tricky. I mean, it is what it is. One thing about it is we're in a new era when it comes to Black political voices. We are in a new space, and you have a lot of voices like myself who have no choice but to speak up because a lot of what's being said is simply not the truth. Okay. And so a lot of things that are happening that are a result of a bunch of lies. And so our generation of new and young political minds, we not having it. Period. So Lyndon B. Johnson takes over for John F. Kennedy that day when John F. Kennedy is killed. And so what Lyndon B. Johnson he wants to do, or what he told us he wants. In fact, I'm not going to even speak for him. I'm going to let him speak for himself. So this is Lyndon B. Johnson now introducing an act. And I'll let you listen in. And I want you to pay attention. We heard what Kennedy had to say, okay? I want y'all to pay really close attention to something here, because this really matters extensively. We heard what Kennedy had to say when he introduced the act as to who the act was for. We know who fought for the act. We know who fought to get it passed. We know why it was needed. We know all of these things. These things were established by Kennedy and King, the March on Washington. We saw all the public support for who it was for, which was for the Negro. Okay. Now, listen to Lyndon B. Johnson reintroduce Kennedy's act, and listen to how many times he say Negro in his speech.
My fellow Americans, I am about to sign into law the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I want to take this occasion to talk to you about what that law means to every American. 188 years ago this week, a small band of valiant men began a long struggle for freedom. They pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor, not only to found a nation, but to forge an ideal of freedom, not only for political independence, but for personal liberty, not only to eliminate foreign rule, but to establish the rule of justice in the affairs of men. That struggle was a turning point in our history.
I wanted the word cuppa as a cup of tea.
I didn't do that. This is you doing it.
When I saw that
in far corners of distant continents, the ideals of those American patriots still shape the struggles of men who hunger for freedom. This is a proud triumph. Yet those who founded our country knew that freedom would be secure only if each generation fought to renew and enlarge its meaning. From the Minutemen at Concord to the soldiers in Vietnam, each generation has been equal to that trust. Americans of every race and color have died in battle to protect our freedom.
Not the Negro.
Americans of every race and color have worked to build a nation.
Look at his smirk on his face.
Of widening opportunities. Now, our generation of Americans has been called on to continue the unending search for justice within our own borders. We believe that all men are created equal.
All men.
Yet many are denied equal treatment. We believe that all men have certain unalienable rights. Yet many Americans
do
not enjoy those rights.
Not Negroes.
We believe that all men are entitled to the blessings of liberty, yet millions are being deprived of those blessings.
Millions.
Not because of their own failures, but because of the color of their skin. The reasons are deeply embedded in history and tradition and the nature of man. We can understand without rancor or hatred how this all happened, but it cannot continue. Our Constitution, the foundation of our republic, forbids it. The principles of our freedom forbid it. Morality forbids it. And the law I will sign forbids it. That law is the product of months of the most careful debate and discussion. It was proposed more than 1 year ago by our late and beloved president, John F. Kennedy.
But he said Negro, you didn't.
It received the bipartisan support of more than 2/3 of the members of both the House and the Senate. An overwhelming majority of Republicans, as well as Democrats, voted for it. It has received the thoughtful support of tens of thousands of civic and religious leaders in all parts of this nation. And it is supported by the great majority of the American people. The purpose of this law is simple. It does not restrict the freedom of any American so long as he respects the rights of others. It does not give special treatment to any citizen. It does say the only limit to a man's hope for happiness and for the future of his children shall be his own ability. It does say that there are those who are equal before God shall now also be equal in the polling booths, in the classrooms, in the factories, and in hotels and restaurants and movie theaters and other places that provide service to the public.
Okay, so I'm going to play his whole speech because I want you to hear for yourself. He never said that this law was to help Negroes. He never said that. And this is the Civil Rights Act. Never said that. Kennedy.
Its purpose.
Kennedy is the one who said it. Okay? Kennedy.
Did you lose a lot of money sports betting on DraftKings or FanDuel?
It was Kennedy who said this was for Negroes. He told us he was continuing what Kennedy was doing, but never even mentioned the people Kennedy was doing it for. This is where the great deception happens in regards to a lot of what's happening, what we talking about with immigration. And you're going to see the correlation in a little bit. I'm going to show you the correlation, but this is where it started, okay? This is where the first deception happened. The first backstab happened right here. Y'all witnessing it. You didn't hear him say Negroes. You heard Kennedy say it. You know that Negroes fought for the law to get changed. You know they were the only ones fighting for it. So, mighty funny he never mentioned Negroes, but let us continue.
For human dignity. We will achieve these goals because most Americans are law-abiding citizens.
Americans.
Who want to do what is right. This is why the Civil Rights Act relies first on voluntary compliance, then on the efforts of local communities and states to secure the rights of citizens. It provides for the national authority to step in only when others cannot or will not do the job. This Civil Rights Act is a challenge to all of us to go to work in our communities and our states, in our homes and in our hearts, to eliminate the last vestiges of injustice in our beloved country. So, tonight I urge every public official, every religious leader, every business and professional man, every working man, every housewife, I urge every American to join in this effort to bring justice and hope to all our people and to bring peace to our land. My fellow citizens, we have come now to a time of testing. We must not fail. Let us close the springs of racial poison. Let us pray for wise and understanding hearts. Let us lay aside irrelevant differences and make our nation whole. Let us hasten that day when our unmeasured strength and our unbounded spirit will be free to do the great works ordained for this nation by the just and wise God, who is the Father of us all. Thank you and good night.
Okay, so this is the actual signing of that civil rights bill that Kennedy introduced. This is the actual signing of it. Okay. I just want you guys to see this. I want you to see the manipulation that happened. Okay. This is the actual signing. Which he clearly, again, never said this was about Negroes or the freedom of Negroes or the equality of Negroes. Never said. Johnson didn't, at least. Kennedy did. So we know what Kennedy had in mind, and we clearly know what Kennedy had in mind. And we're going to see Johnson implement what he had in mind as well. Kennedy never got a chance to implement what he had in mind because he was killed. So this is the signing of it. I want you guys to watch this clip. Okay? Look at them smiling. I believe that's J. Edgar Hoover right there, smiling. Never seen so many racist people because Hoover was a racist. Why is all these racist people smiling? We're going to see why in a second.
Yeah. Charlie, you got one?
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
Right. I'm waiting for one thing to pop up. Did it happen already? Right here. Who's that? Right. I don't think he knew. You got this black man here smiling. I don't think he knew what was going on. Okay? I don't think he knew. You know, I don't think he knew. And this might, I'm not speaking biasly. Some people said he did. Some people said he didn't. I'm not sure he knew, right? That what they had in mind. And I mean, because even when you listen to the speech to the average Joe, they wouldn't even have thought about that. He didn't even say black. He never said the Negro. They would never have thought about that. I'm pretty sure they weren't thinking about that back then. But this is why you have a new generation of political minds like myself. We picking up on all that. You're not about to play with us. You're not about to play with us. So, and I don't care if it was then or now, we're going to pick it up. We're going to call it out. This is not stuff that's happening in your personal life. This is him signing bills and making laws. I don't care about what Lyndon B. Johnson and Lady Bird did when they went at home. That's none of my business. What you did when you were in office and in your capacity of work that affected millions of black people, yes, that matters. So that's what we're talking about now. Now, okay. So we have that. That was the Civil Rights Act. It was in 1964, right? So I believe that was June of 1964. June 2nd, 1964 is when this is happening. Okay. So now I'm gonna go to the second side to this. See, that was the first side of their plan. Make it seem like this was part of a help black people sort of a movement. Get the black support. And Johnson definitely did that. He got the black support, even though he really shouldn't have had it, in my opinion. If he said whatever he said it was not going to do, you can take that for face value. I don't know if he was trying to warn the people or what he was doing, but he told on himself quite a bit in these remarks when signing these bills. So Lyndon B. Johnson does the Civil Rights Act, right? In segregation and all of this, okay? 1 year later, he does this act here, which is the Immigration Act. Now, mind you, at this time, no immigrants are here really, not of color, at least. All the immigrants were basically from Poland and all these different places, okay? And they were basically brought here in order to not have to hire blacks, to be quite frank. In 1925, they did this big Immigration Act. And in fact, it actually drowned the economy. You know what I mean? It sent us, in my opinion, that's what sent us into the Great Depression, was the fact that you imported all these people here that you couldn't take care of. Okay. And so for means of being, what word I want to use? For means of being racist, because you didn't want to hire the available laborers, which were the blacks. And a lot of blacks went into business for themselves too, because they, of course, did not want to continue to work for white people and for racists who want to work for racists. So the culmination of this led to a lot of importing of Poland and Germany and all these white immigrants. Well, Lyndon B. Johnson, in my opinion, knowing what he was doing, signed the Immigration Act to change that, okay? Especially being as though he had new access to, of course, which was the black markets. Because of the segregation, whites wasn't really doing business in black neighborhoods. It was really the blacks doing business in black neighborhoods. And so, in my opinion, once the desegregation happened, of course, whites knew they couldn't go into these black neighborhoods to do business. So they had to, of course, they didn't want to hire blacks and do business with blacks and give blacks true equality. So they backstabbed them, right, with this act. And so I'm going to let Lyndon Johnson talk about it. And so here we have it. And again, listen to what Lyndon B. Johnson says. He has a funny way of telling on himself whenever he's about to backstab black Americans. So.
The president's remarks upon signing the immigration bill on Liberty Island in New York City, October 3rd, 1965.
Mr. Vice President, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Ambassador Goldberg, distinguished members of the leadership of the Congress, distinguished governors and mayors, my fellow countrymen. We have called the Congress here this afternoon not only to mark a very historic occasion, but to settle a very old issue that is in dispute. That issue is to what congressional district does Liberty Island really belong? Congressman Farbstein or Congressman Gallagher? It will be settled by whomever of the two can walk first to the top of the Statue of Liberty. This bill that we will sign today is not a revolutionary bill. It does not affect the lives of millions. It will not reshape the structure of our daily lives or really add importantly to either our wealth or our power. Yet it is still one of the most important acts of this Congress and of this administration. For it does repair a very deep and painful flaw in the fabric of American justice. It corrects a cruel and enduring wrong in the conduct of the American nation. Speaker McCormick and Congressman Seller, more than almost 40 years ago, first pointed that out in their maiden speeches in the Congress. And this measure that we will sign today will really make us truer to ourselves, both as a country and as a people. It will strengthen us in 100 unseen ways. And I have come here to thank personally each member of the Congress who labored so long and so valiantly to make this occasion come true today and to make this bill a reality. I cannot mention all their names, for it would take much too long. But my gratitude and that of this nation belongs to the 89th Congress. we are in debt to the vision of the late beloved President John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and to the support given to this measure by the then Attorney General and now Senator Robert F. Kennedy. In the final days of consideration, this bill had no more able champion than the present Attorney General, Nicholas Katzenbach, who, with New York's own Manny Seller and Senator Ted Kennedy of Massachusetts and Congressman Fegan of Ohio and Senator Mansfield and Senator Dirksen constituting the leadership of the Senate, and Senator Javits, helped to guide this bill to passage, along with the help of the members sitting in front of me today. This bill says simply that from this day forth, those wishing to immigrate to America shall be admitted on the basis of their skills and their close relationships to those already here. This is a simple test, and it is a fair test. Those who can contribute most to this country, to its growth, to its strength, to its spirit, will be the first that are admitted to this land. The fairness of this standard is so self-evident that we may well wonder that it has not always been applied. Yet the fact is that for over 4 decades, the immigration policy of the United States has been twisted and has been distorted by the harsh injustice of the national origins quota system. Under that system, the ability of new immigrants to come to America depended upon the country of their birth. Only 3 countries were allowed to supply 70% of all the immigrants. Families were kept apart because a husband or a wife or a child had been born in the wrong place. Men of needed skill and talent were denied entrance because they came from Southern or Eastern Europe or from one of the developing continents. This system today...
So I'm going to stop him here, right? Basically, in a nutshell, what he's doing is he opened our borders up, okay, after he basically pushing the Civil Rights Act, right? Changing the Civil Rights Act to mean all citizens, not Negroes. We're not just helping Negroes. We're making all citizens. The reason is because he knew that all these guys were working on this bill, this immigration bill. They were going to bring millions of people into black neighborhoods and basically enterprise with them and cut black people out of the deal. Since they had to give us, they needed more votes. Whites felt like they needed more people. They needed more votes, especially in the urban areas. So what they would do is order more people. And that's what this was for. That's what this is. It was specifically an attack on black people and on Native blacks, because the Civil Rights Act forced you to have to hire equally and have to do things based on merit and not color. So you brought in new people to compete with blacks. Since we have to hire black people, their skin just have to be black. We can hire a real person from Africa. We don't have to hire the native blacks, right? And so the name of the act was the Hart and Seller Act. And so what we're going to do is just pull up some information on that specific Hart and Seller Act. That's just the introduction of the act. And I just want you to hear specifically what Lyndon B. Johnson said, who told on himself, said, this is not going to affect millions of people, but you're importing millions of people into the country, but it's not going to affect millions of people. It makes no sense. It was all a backstab. And so I'm going to show you what the effects of this Hart and Seller Act was on the general public, on the black public, okay? Specifically. And so let me pull this up for you guys. And again, the name of the act was the Hart and Seller Act. And so, okay. So let me first put this up so that you can see what's going on here. Right here. Okay, so the Hart and Seller Act is passed in 1965. After it's passed, you have to fund the bill, and by 1968 they started bringing people to America, immigrants to America, and then by 1970 is when they passed another law to attach to the Hart-Celler Act, and this is the third hand of the backstab right here. Okay, so it says in 1970, U.S. immigration and employment sponsorship was in a transitional phase following the Immigration Act of 1965. That's what I just explained. Hart-Celler Act, which took effect in 1968. Okay, I just explained all this. This period marked a shift towards prioritizing skilled labor and family reunification over national origin quotas, while also dealing with the aftermath of the biracial programs in. Okay, right? So here, key aspects of employment immigration in 1970. This is when the Immigration Act went into effect. Skilled-based preference. The 1965 law established a law for professionals, scientists, artists, and skilled/unskilled workers needed in the U.S. labor market. So this was a specific act to bring people here to work. If you just promised the black community all of these jobs, why would you then do an act to bring people here to work? Before you even got a chance to even hire the black people here that was looking for work, who had just marched on Washington last year saying we needed jobs, we needed jobs, we needed jobs. The first thing you do, Lyndon B. Johnson, is go do an act to bring other people here to work. And that's literally what it says. Okay, labor certification. Employers, sponsors, foreign workers were required to obtain certification from the Department of Labor. They were required. The only way they could come is if they were workers. Well, if you just promised all these black people jobs in the Civil Rights Act that you signed and said this is going to help all of black Americans. Well, actually, you didn't say that. Johnson didn't say that. And that's what I want all these black people who are running around here chasing Lyndon Johnson's Democrats, quote unquote. I'm going to have them voting Democrat for 30 years. This is who he meant. He meant the black people he would want to bring here to do that. See, these are now citizens. They translate into voters. And so everything that was essentially supposed to go to black Americans in the Civil Rights Act, Lyndon Johnson brought someone else here to give it to them legally. It's right here. Labor certifications required to obtain. Department of Labor confirming they were not sufficient. Okay, now, what a labor certification is, I'm going to tell you how funny they are, how much crazy this is. What a labor certification is when the immigrants had to come, cities would have to put in labor certifications to ensure that it wasn't enough workers there in that city, right? That's what they had to do, right? And so I'm going to show you who put in for labor certifications in 1970. In 1970, now mind you, we just did the March on Washington a few years before. You promised us jobs. Well, in 1970, Department of Labor regional officers, rather than by specific independent state agency, these were the regional officers. The Department of Labor in 1970 included the following regional headquarters, and their respective jurisdictions were handled certification requests for these areas: Connecticut, we know it's a lot of black people there, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Jersey, and New York, Providence, Rhode Island, and whatever V1 is, okay? Delaware, DC, Maryland, PA, VA, and West Virginia. If you from the DC area, you know that's where all the black people are. Native blacks, you know that. If you from the DC area, I can't speak to New York. I'm pretty sure in New York, we know all black people there. New Jersey, all the black people are there. Move down south, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. Utah is not on there. Idaho is not on there. Nebraska is not on there. Nevada is not on there. California is not on there. And nowhere else where whites reside is on there. This was about killing the economic power of the black community and flooding their cities with people of color so that you didn't have to hire them. Immigrants are being used as a weapon here in America against native blacks. That's the simple truth. And I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna show you a couple examples of how that works. I'm gonna show you my example of my own research, and I did it just like I'm doing this. I'm gonna show you my example of my research. I'm gonna play that for you, but I'm gonna play some other research for you as well that didn't come from me. Okay, so points, and then, of course I got references, so you can go and look at the references yourself. Okay, because it's a whole report's done on this, and it's not being done by me, but it's being done by others. Okay, and it's not me. And you can pull this up and look at it for yourself. Right here. 10% increase in the size of the skill group reduces 7.1 right there. And that's the Harvard study. Okay, now I'll go back to the beginning because you guys didn't see that. It was just me talking. And you can pull this up and look at it for yourself. This change in annual earnings arises because immigration reduces both weekly earnings and annual hours worked. Now, I'm going to let y'all see my study that I did on it and let you see what's going on. I am going to at least let you know what it says. It says the table reports what happens to various labor market outcomes when immigration increases the number of workers in a particular skilled area, in a particular skilled group by 10%, right? Okay, so the table shows that immigration has a very strong effect on annual earnings. A 10% increase in the size of the skill group reduces annual earnings by 7% among salary workers. Okay, so for native workers, as we know, they choose it. Their people are being brought here based on their specific skills. So if you say you work in construction, if they increase and order a 10% increase on construction labor workers, meaning the United States, and bring in a 10% increase through immigration on that construction market, that is going to lower everyone else's salary by 7.1%. Just the 10% increase lowers everybody's salary by 10%, by 7.1%. So you got to remember, we're all eating off the same plate. We have to understand that. We're all eating off the same plate. So you're adding people to this plate and you're thinking that it doesn't affect people. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. And this is the specific number as to how it's affecting people. Okay? So it says this change in annual earnings arises because immigration reduces both weekly earnings and hourly and annual hours worked. Okay, to summarize the implications of the evidence, the table reports, shows how, so that's just the top of that. And it says right here, this change, so that's just the top of that. And it says right here, this change of annual earnings arises because immigration reduces both weekly earnings and annual hours worked. Weekly earnings fall about 3.7% among salary workers and by 4.5% if one includes self-employment. Further, annual hours of work fall by about right here. Further, annual hours of work fall by about 3.5%. In some, immigration has an adverse effect on both wages and employment of competing native workers. It is worth stressing that the strong negative effects of immigration on the employment opportunities of native workers found at the national level differ substantially from the near zero correlations that are typically found when comparing wages across the labor markets itself. So basically, lower class people are going to be affected more. This is a Harvard study. This is not my study. That is a Harvard study. Okay. That is a Harvard study. Sorry, I didn't have it up. That's a Harvard study. That's not my study. Okay, now I'll go back and let you see. There was labor availabilities because they went so crazy with the immigrant labor. And so I'm just going to let you hear what DC, in Washington, D.C., my own study that was done. And so this to me, I'm more of a hands-on guy. So this is right in your face. This is no disputing that. So it's just, it is what it is.
All projects directly receiving district funds, the Capital One Arena will be subject to Federal Davis-Bacon Act, which establishes the wage and benefit scale. So what do you get with a PLA? You will get a project built by non-district residents and non-DC businesses. We are confident that Monumental and its general contractor will make every effort to hire and subcontract locally. But there's no simple way to reconcile the district's first source and CBE goals with the requirements of the PLA. Consider the Douglas Bridge project, which was held up as a PLA success in this chamber earlier this year. According to DDOT's own data, the $480 million bridge built entirely in Ward 8 resulted in just 22 new jobs for district residents, a mere 10% of all new hires, less than 1/5 of the district's 51% new hire requirements in the first source law. Only one of these jobs went to a Ward 8 resident. Think about that. A $480 million bridge built entirely in Ward 8, and only one job was created for a Ward 8 resident.
Okay, so after hearing the statistics, $480 million spent on the South Capitol Street Bridge, and only one job went to Ward 8. After hearing that, the best thing we can do is say, okay, let's figure out where the jobs went, right? So let's go down here. All right, it's only one Ward 8 resident. Let's see right here. Okay. Let me move this over. Where did the jobs go? South Capitol Street Bridge. Okay, there you go. That's where the job went. Right here. Those are the workers. Again, we can ignore this if we want, but let's be clear, none of the other candidates on here expressed anything regarding illegal immigration and the employment of illegal immigrants in your neighborhood. If you think that it's not economically impacting your neighborhood, this is a prime example of how that works. $480 million project entirely in Ward 8. And this is who they hired for the project. It's right here. This is their site. Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge, a bridge named after Frederick Douglass. At that, how insulting. Okay, so that was my own research that I did about a project that happened in DC, where you had, again, $480 million project, and you literally only hired one person. Do you know what type of economic warfare that is against a community? You know, and when I say it's economic warfare, people call me all types of racially charged names. But let's be clear about this. when you say it's not economic warfare, I want you to understand that, and I hate to throw people under the bus, but now I have to defend myself in my claim. So if I told you right now that 7-Eleven, being known to have multiple stores in black neighborhoods, so rarely, they do hire blacks here and there, but when you talk about their total workforce, it's probably really low in regards to blacks. Most of their stores are in black neighborhoods. Most of their patrons are black. If I told you that 7-Eleven itself as a company was structured behind economic warfare against the black community, you would say I was crazy, even though they're all in black communities, and even though they don't hire blacks, and even though they're known to not hire blacks, but hire people who look like they're black, but not really black. So an example of this would be the Quickie Mart on The Simpsons. That is a prime example of what 7-Elevens were during the 90s. If anybody say I'm lying, you know I'm not. And again, who worked there? Abu worked there. That is what they were known to do in black neighborhoods. Go into black neighborhoods specifically, open up businesses, and not hire blacks. Well, I'm going to show you, and if I said that was economic warfare, you would call me a racially charged name. But I want to specifically show you how that's economic warfare. I want to pull something up for you guys, right? If you go to the owner of 7-Eleven on Google, this guy's, the founder, this guy's not going to come up, but this is really the guy who made 7-Eleven into what it is for real. Share it for you guys. All right, so you have this guy here. This guy is known for 7-Eleven. He's the guy who made 7-Elevens into a global brand. Okay. So, it says it right here. It's a Japanese retail tycoon who founded Ito Yokado Group. Most famously acquired the U.S.-based 7-Eleven operator, Southland Corporation, in 1991. He did not hold a position in the U.S. government, but instead expanded major American brand 7-Eleven into the global powerhouse, strictly influencing U.S. and business relations. Okay, relationship with U.S. businesses. He built a close relationship with U.S. management consultant Peter Drucker, who mentored him and helped shape his business and philosophy. Okay, so Peter Drucker, it's clear, right? And so him and Drucker had several businesses together and this really vast relationship, and he has donated millions of dollars to Drucker's everything that Drucker wanted to do. This guy pretty much funded it. Okay. And so he's the powerhouse for 7-Eleven. So let me show you something really interesting about Mr. Drucker. See if it's in here. Okay. This is the two men together. Okay. Business icon and friend Peter Drucker right here. And also a CGU benefactor. Told you he funded everything. Okay. So let me show you something about Mr. Peter Drucker right here. Here it is right here. Peter Drucker. Australian-American management consultant, educator, author, all of this stuff about him. Good stuff. What he did, you know. Okay, so let's move along with Mr. Peter Drucker. I'm going to show you something really interesting about Mr. Drucker. Okay, right here. Objections. With the U.S. engaged in World War II, Drucker also became a consultant on the international economic policy to the Board of Economic Warfare in 1943. Right here. But you tell me that 7-Elevens being in black neighborhoods is not economic warfare, when you got the guy who actually did it was on the Board of Economic Warfare. You understand what I'm saying? So when black people speak up on behalf of themselves or on behalf of some of this shady history, it's not always fueled in racism. some of this stuff is feud in the truth. It's right here. Peter Drucker, he worked on the board of economic warfare, and ironically, he's linked to the guy who puts all the 7-Elevens in the black neighborhoods and don't hire black people, which I've always said has been economic warfare. And he did it ironically based on this immigration thing. The same thing with the Chinese carryouts. Drucker was linked to those. He's been linked to China. He's been linked to everywhere that you have black businesses. You have international foreign businesses in black neighborhoods. This circle of people have been involved in it. Even when you had a lot of women's support, and I don't want to get into that, but they have used the support of women also for economic warfare in many ways against black men. This is not me making this up. This is legislation. These are the people who are involved in it. They've held titles doing this stuff for years. So this isn't me making anything up. Immigrants are and have been used as a weapon against Native blacks from day one. That is the absolute truth. So now, if black people aren't coming to the aid of the immigrant community, because there hasn't been much, let me say, a good working relationship between the two, you guys won't even recognize the only reason you're here is because of black people. And I'm gonna go a step further when I say the only reason you're here is because of black people. The Heart and Settler Act that brought you here was literally an act that they took from the civil rights movement. And I'm gonna show you. Whether the motives were of right here, yes, the Heart and Settler Act, Immigration Act, right here. Right there. Now I'll read it out. The Heart and Settler Act, Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 was directly influenced by and designed to complement the civil rights movement. It is often described as an extension of the civil rights revolution into immigration law, which it wasn't that. It was a backstab of the black community. That was what it was. It definitely was an extension of it because Kennedy didn't have that in mind. We saw that. We just went through it. Never had that in mind. That was never Kennedy's intention. So that's a lie. However, if it wasn't for black people fighting for those laws, that wouldn't have ever happened. So all you immigrants who come here, and let me put something up why I'm saying this, because it's been a lot of disrespectful things being tossed around towards the black community, and these immigrants, no offense, you got to be careful with that one, because we got to be honest. Because if this was reversed, you wouldn't want this, you wouldn't want those things being said and happening to you, right? It's one thing with us being allies. It's another thing with you trying to come over and take over somebody's land. Okay? You're not, no offense. If your origins come from elsewhere, you are from elsewhere. That's how that works. If your origins come from here, if you originate here, you are from here. This is feeling a lot of Christopher Columbus-ish. Of, oh, I discovered something that was already discovered. No, this is somebody's home. This is somebody's lineage that you're playing with. It is. It's not yours. If you're European American, you're European. If you're not an indigenous black, you're not an American for real. You are from wherever else you are from. Because the only people that were here were blacks. I didn't say that. John, I didn't say that. The first person who ever stepped foot on his land said that. Savages is what they used to call them. Okay? So I want to share something, though. I'm trying to pull the screen up. Here. Sorry, I didn't pull it up yet. Let me share this picture, man. Because we have a problem here. There's a lot of disrespect being tossed around. A lot of disrespect being tossed around. And so I want to make sure I address a little bit of that. too, while I'm here, while we're on this subject. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna pull this up. This was very disrespectful. We got to be careful to show respect to somebody else's lineage, somebody else's heritage, somebody else's homeland. Blacks don't owe you anything. They don't have to share their land with you. They're doing this as a favor to be honest. More than any, I mean, they don't have to share nothing with you. Just like you don't have to share anything with them. But truthfully speaking, this is native blacks, the savages. This is their land. Look at this guy here. Shabuzi doing his Grammy speech. Immigrants built this country. No, you didn't. You were brought here as an economic pond against native blacks. And to backstab native blacks. That's the truth. We just all went over the laws. So how about you show more respect to the people that actually did build this place? The native blacks. Because the second part to this is still their land. I mean, what did you think? It's not theirs. Not only did they build it, it's still their land. Hold on. Let me pull this up. Oh, my goodness. There you go. Talking about immigrants built this nation, so this is for them. Where? No, you didn't. You didn't build anything. You benefited off of something that someone else built and you were brought here to rob and steal from someone else. To be honest. I showed you the laws. I showed you everything else, and I'm not going to hide it. This is a new generation of black leadership, man. We not going for that. All the lies that y'all want to tell, and we're not doing that. And again, I know I've been mad. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I know I haven't had my my visuals together the way I would like to, but guess what? You know what I'm trying to say. You heard my voice. You hear my voice. You hear me talking. This is a new day in black leadership. All this stuff that y'all doing, these lies y'all telling, nah, we don't have to go for that. We don't have to hide our history to make you comfortable. We don't have to hide your racism to make you comfortable. We're not doing that. You didn't build this country. Sorry, immigrants, you didn't. You had a hand in it. You assisted in it. But sorry, this country was already built far before you got here. You just got here in 1965. And most of you got here far after that, to be quite frank. Show some respect to whoever's land this is. If you are from France, your land is in France. And when I go to France, if I go to how it work, I'm going to show the most respect. But you're not going to come here and act like we don't exist. That is over. This new black leadership, we ain't going for that. We here. If you don't like it, roll out. I don't have no problem with saying that. I don't think nobody should stay somewhere where they don't like how things are going. If you're from another country, you have the option to leave. But the native black doesn't. Okay? So I want to actually solve problems. And we can't solve it if we're lying about exactly what this is and exactly what this is not. Too much lies going on. Okay? We don't owe you anything. So yes, as a person of native black, and to know how immigrants have been used in this country, I do absolutely think whoever is not here let out or should leave themselves voluntarily. That's my whole thing. I always felt like people should self-deport. That way you ain't got to worry about it. You don't have to worry about any abuses if you just leave voluntarily. So that's always my option and my advice to whomever that's here that shouldn't be here. There is no fighting for rights when you're living on someone else's land, right? You should go and deal with whatever your situation is. That way you can clean your mess up for your kids and for yourself, because your kids may not have opted to cross that border if they had a choice. So y'all are dragging involuntary people across the border too. We don't talk about that enough. So as far as immigration, immigrants have been used as a weapon against the black community, black folks. If you need to know how and specifically why, it's right here in this video. So whatever you're getting mad at other black folks for supporting ICE, Trump, or anything else, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. I'm gonna be the first to tell you, and I'm not gonna be I'm unapologetic about that. You are wrong. Now, the methods that you want to say, whatever, that's up for debate. I don't have nothing to do with that conversation. But should black people be rooting on immigrants right now? Absolutely, 100% unequivocally not. They have done nothing but break down your community and been used as a weapon of economic warfare, like I just showed you. And I'm gonna go back to the guy just in case you can't seem to get it. People seem to think I'm outside of my realm when I say this. So let's end this conversation too, since I said it. I brought it up, I said it. So I'll bring a little context to it as well. When John C. Smith came here, right, he's the first European to document when he came to, Englishman, to document when he came to the United States, right? He described the people that were here, okay? He described the people that was here. This is who he described. This is who he described. The savages. You see that? There's no yellow skin, no whatever y'all keep. This is what he described. I'm telling the truth. And in fact, I'm going to hide that if you racist, then you're going to know that that it's not rocket science. This is all about pillaging their land at the end of the day. You were brought here for voting rights, so eventually y'all can get enough rights to basically move native blacks out of their lands and basically take over their lands. That's what you were brought here for. To be honest. I'm not about to hide that if you racist, then you're going to know that that you might argue it down if you racist, but if you're not racist, you know I'm telling the truth. And in fact, I'm gonna go a step further. I'm gonna go a step further and let somebody else tell you act itself passing. Okay. So
and then immigration opening up in 1965 and recognizing this pattern amendment passing in 1964 and then immigration opening up in amendment passing in 1964 and then immigration opening up in 1965 and recognizing this pattern of using immigrants to basically get in the way of accountability to Black people. So it's like, okay, the Civil Rights Amendment finally passes. There should be some accountability. Systems should be changing. And then all of a sudden you've thrown a group of people into the mix who don't have context. Like they've just arrived. My mom and my dad, my mom arrived in the 50s, but my dad arrived in the 60s. Those opportunities, right? Like those educational opportunities, those business opportunities, those resources that with the Civil Rights Amendment should have been opportunities for Black people who fought for those civil rights are now, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want to say that Asian Americans don't work hard and that they don't deserve what they get, but they arrive and that opportunity is being given to them. This amendment passing in 1964 and then immigration.
There you go. Those opportunities literally was taken from native blacks and given to immigrants. They were brought here for that, for economic warfare purposes. I'm gonna leave it there. Y'all have a good rest of your week. Again, I apologize if I hurt somebody's feelings, but the laws and the acts and everything else is public record, and for other people who want to know more, dive into it more. and you're going to find what I said to be pretty truthful, you know. So this is not about race, color, or creed. This is about trying to fix the problem. And until America deals with the theft that has happened to the Black community, it's never going to work. Period. You can't continue to steal from the Native people or rob the Native people or think that you're ever going to get anything that way. We have to deal with how Black people have been robbed and pillaged in this country of their lands and everything else that rights-wise that should be owed to them. Until America deals with that, you're going to have all types of problems because it's all hidden in lies and it's too easy to uncover them. And you just got to dive through the legislation. Again, this is not to attack any group of people. This is more to tell the truth so that we can actually deal with the problem. You're not going to deal with the problem as long as you keep lying about it. So yes, immigrants were brought here for economic warfare purposes against the Black community, period. Oh, I was about to go. Let me stop because I had to say one more thing to say. This is what makes it so ugly. Let me get a PS in here. Remember this. Malcolm X was shot 20-something times, probably more than that, in front of his wife and kids and murdered in front of his wife and kids to get these laws passed so that the rest of us Black people would have opportunity. Martin Luther King sacrificed himself in a lot of ways to get these laws passed. So for y'all to sit here and play this game that you're playing right now with Black people regarding these laws and how they've been implemented and used as weapons against us after we watched our own people murdered to get them passed, they were just murdered in vain. Like you took everything that we were murdered for and you gave it to someone else and we supposed to be okay. Like that's supposed to be okay. Stop it, y'all. Stop playing with us. Real talk. Like, it's one thing with being an ally to our community. It's another thing with trying to come over here and take over and trying to disrespect us. That's what a lot of y'all are doing. A lot of y'all have taken over for us. You're not trying to help us get in place. You don't support Black people. You don't support any Black person if they don't have on a jersey or if they're not singing and dancing. Right? Y'all are not allies to our community. You're not trying to help empower us. A lot of y'all trying to help empower yourselves using us. Like you've done. Look at the highest members of Congress, the Black, quote unquote, Black people, Barack Obama. No offense. Yes, he's American. His mama's American, but he's white American, if you want to say that. His father's from Kenya. His father was one of the people that came over here, in fact. I'm pretty sure Kamala Harris folks came over here through those immigration acts too. That's the second one. That'd be the second highest Black person, as far as, and when you look down the line, you rarely find a native Black. All the Black people are in there representing, they are immigrants in some sort of way. So we've been stripped of our political power too. And it's been given to the immigrant community. And we just supposed to be okay with that, right? Come on, y'all. It's one thing with being an ally. It's another thing with coming and taking over this community and taking over our industry and taking over and to have me personally, to see a construction site with a whole group of Hispanics, every member nearly. If I am Hispanic, I am not doing that. So you garner some responsibility too. When you're going in there and taking over and invading someone else's economy. And y'all have known that you've been doing that and you have willfully been participants. Now, we could act like this isn't going on all we want. I'm not the one to do that. That's not how you deal with problems. I think that much of the immigration legislation is bad. It doesn't serve everyone. It really serves the immigrant population over the native population in many ways. And that has to be dealt with. You cannot have that sort of imbalance and think your society is going to be clean or without animosity. Secondly, I don't think that illegal immigration is a federal problem either. I think we should have state mechanisms to deal with this. That's another side to it. So for me, I would introduce legislation which is already prepared that would deal with it on a state level, where we would apprehend not just the people who are working, but the people who hire the workers too. See, that's the second side to this that doesn't seem to be getting any light or shed on them. I get it. You have what's called those labor contracts where you order people and all of that. Yeah, I get that, but you're not allowed to order illegals. You're not allowed to have illegal people working for you. And many of you have done it. Many of you have engaged in economic warfare as well against communities of, specifically native communities of color, using immigrants. Many of you have hidden your racism behind immigrants. But again, immigrants have been willing participants in it too. Many of them. Not all. I know a lot. I know a few who haven't. But many immigrants have been willing participants, have not been allies to the Black communities, have been willing participants in many of the economic warfare against the Black community. And then they'll go into the Black community and turn their nose up at them as if they earned those opportunities, which we see they did not. I'm not going to play with you. So this was light work. I'm going to get out y'all way and let y'all enjoy the rest of your day, but we ain't going to play this game as if immigrants haven't been used as a weapon against Black people this whole time, because you have. And y'all really owe Black people your existence here in America. Native Blacks, the Martin Luther Kings and Malcolm X's of the world and their children, and the ones who had to go through the violence and the hangings and the beatings. Those are the reasons those people are the reason you're here. They deserve more respect out of you than what you have given them. If we're going to be allies, we can be allies, or you can go home where you're from. Y'all make the choice. But if you decide that you don't want to abide by our border laws, you decide you don't want to abide by whatever laws that is given out, because we're trying to, at the end of the day, we can't run no society on people who just break laws. And you're not even from here. So you're going to come break laws and not be from here? Yeah, you out your mind. No. This is not anybody comes and becomes an American. That's not what this is. You have your own lineage, your own heritage, your own family, your own culture. It's not anybody come to America, now you're an American. No. And that goes for white people too. If you're a German American, you're from Germany. Okay? If you don't have savage blood in your veins, the people who were savages here first, that y'all call savages, I know they weren't savages, but y'all call them savages. So if you ain't got no savage blood in you, you ain't American. It's a new day here when it comes to the Black voice. We ain't going for it no more. See y'all later.